Hello, my fellow breakaway thinkers. Hello. Welcome to another video today. It's another wonderful day. Hope everybody's doing well, and I wish you well in all your ways and everything that you are doing, all your dreams, all your goals, everything that you're pursuing. So, today I want to talk about the concept of being alone versus being by yourself. I was actually driving on my way home, and this idea kind of came to me, and I started thinking about it. And I just wanted to make a quick video on it. So the question is, what is the difference between being alone versus being by yourself? So there is a difference between the two. I know they are similar in some ways, right? When you think about it, they're just about the same, but it's not really when you start to really look at it. So I just want to give you my perspective on that. To me, when I look at the word alone, right? Alone, what does it mean to be alone? I'm starting with just the word itself, alone, that word. When I look at that word alone, I see all one. Like if you look at how that word is spelled, right? A-L-O-N-E. I was looking at that word one day. I was thinking about it, actually. I wasn't looking at it, I was thinking about it. And it kind of came to me, I was like, all one. Huh. That's an interesting idea. You know, what if being alone actually meant all one? And the question would be, what does being all one mean? To me, being alone gives you an opportunity to be all one with yourself. Notice I said opportunity, right? Because just the fact that you're alone does not automatically mean that you're all one. And why do I say this? Because when you're out with people, and this is especially for the extroverts, people who are very much, they get a lot of energy from being around people, right? Being around lots of people. And I don't know how people do that, to be honest with you. I can be social, but I'm talking about people who they have to be in the energy of people all the time. I really don't know how y'all do that. So kudos to y'all. If you're watching this and you're like a classic extrovert, kudos to you, because that is a lot of energy. You know, it's at least to me anyway, that would drain me, because when you're with other people, you're giving parts of yourself to each of those people that you're with. So if you imagine being in a place where you're constantly interacting with tons of people, if you want to have meaningful interactions anyway, and this is the key, if it's just, hello and how you doing, I mean, that's easy. But I'm talking about you having meaningful interactions with tons of people. That's a lot of energy, because you're giving parts of yourself to each of those people. You may not realize that, but that's what you're doing. You're giving away parts of you. So my understanding, based on what I just said, right? The idea that you're giving off all these parts of you to these people is that you're basically fragmenting yourself. You're splitting yourself into all these different pieces, because each person you're talking to, depending on the dynamic, depending on the conversation, you're going to have different interactions based on their body language. There's all these factors, right? So imagine doing that with so many people. I don't know. I don't know how people do it. But anyway, so being alone for me gives you an opportunity to basically come back to yourself, right? So if you're having to split yourself into all these different personalities almost, because you're not going to deal with each person the same way. You know, the energy between you and one person will be different with the other person, right? So when you are alone or all one, basically that is an opportunity for you to come back into fullness. This is how I see it anyway. So that's being alone. How about being by yourself? You could be in a place where you could be by yourself in the physical sense, where physically there's nobody around you, but you're still not alone. So for example, if you are by yourself, and let's say And we all do this, by the way. So no judgment, okay? We all do this, but let's say you're by yourself and then you scroll a lot on your phone. You're by yourself, but you're not alone because you're not all one. You're still fragmented. You're still giving a certain part of yourself away in the form of you being on the phone, looking at social media or whatever. You're giving that your attention. You're not giving attention fully to yourself. So my question is, how are some of the ways that we can truly be alone, truly be all one, truly be basically complete within ourselves for a certain amount of time? You're not always going to have that, of course. You know, we're social beings. We want to be around people. That's totally understandable. But what I'm saying is there are certain moments where I think we could all feel it in some way that we want to be alone. We want to be all one with ourselves, right? And just because of the mere fact that there's nobody around you does not necessarily mean that you have that. So you have to be intentional. That's why I use the word opportunity. It's an opportunity being by yourself, right? It's an opportunity for you to be alone. So you have to be intentional about doing that. So if it's finding ways to silence your mind, things like meditation, by the way, doesn't have to necessarily be sitting down, you know, doing no, that's not the case for everybody. Not everybody's into that. That's not everybody's style, okay? And that's totally fine. Meditation for some people could be working out and, you know, being on a treadmill. That's a form of meditation for me. Another one for me is grounding, getting outside, putting my feet on the ground, you know, getting sun exposure, getting fresh air. You know, there's so many different ways to meditate, right? So finding whatever it is that works for you personally, right? Where you can just disconnect from the outer world and connect to the inner world that is within you, right? So that you can be all one, so that all these separate pieces of you, all these different pieces that you're giving away to whatever is the relationships with the people and all these things, at least for a certain amount of time, right? It would be to your benefit to give yourself that opportunity to bring all of those things back to yourself. So all those parts of you that are split, bringing it all back together, which to me means being alone, which again is, to me, all one. So meditation, that's one way. Journaling is another way to do that. Sitting down and just writing things down in your mind, getting thoughts out, you know, of your head, putting them on paper. Some of it, sometimes you could just be sitting silently, right? And being okay with the silence. That's another thing too. It's just being okay with the silence and not letting that silence scare you. Because we're in a world where we're bombarded with so much noise that silence frightens us. We're like afraid of quiet. You know, when it's quiet, we're like, oh my God, like we don't know what to do with ourselves when it's quiet. But it's such a weird thing because it's like, why don't you like quietness? We should love quietness, at least sometimes. But we've been conditioned so much to be used to noise that we can't even appreciate quietness when we get it. And I know that with the way that life is, that's not always going to be the case. You know, if you're a parent, if you're a caretaker, I mean, there's all these things that's taking our attention, right? So the chances of you being even quiet, I know it's not always realistic per se, right? I understand that. So I'm not sitting here pretending like, you know, people have all the time in the world, because I get it, people don't. But what I'm saying is that just finding ways that are unique to us to create that silence for ourselves. Because you can even be around people and still be silent. Now, you know, the issue with that is obviously you won't be attentive to what's going on in the group, what's going on with other people. And this is something that I used to struggle with. You know, being in a group of people and then I'm not there. You know, my mind is my mind is going away for a little bit, you know, and I'm not as attentive as I should be to the conversations and things like that. And it might have come across to some people that I was intentionally being absent-minded or not caring. It's not that. It's just I was just that way where my mind kind of just wanders off sometimes. Especially if I'm in a group setting, group of people where the conversations aren't how do I put it? The conversations aren't in depth, where it's a lot of surface level conversations. Like mentally, it wouldn't take long for me to just kind of go away. And it's not intentional. Like I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just how I think my mind works because I'm not being mentally engaged. I'm not being mentally stimulated enough. So my mind is trying to find ways to do that by going within, so I start thinking about all kinds of things. And then next thing you know, I'm totally gone. I'm not, my mind is not listening to any of the conversations taking place. And that can be problematic because in relationships, you don't want it to look like you're not being attentive and you don't care. And so that can create some issues, right? So, if you're listening to this and that's an issue potentially for you, I want you to know that I've been there. So I get it. And that takes some work, being attentive and being able to just place your mind in a place where you can give your attention to others. And then when you get the opportunity, again, to be by yourself, then you can come in, bring all those parts of yourself together and just spend some time with you, internally. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's something that I've really had to deal with. And I wouldn't say that I'm an introvert. Because I don't like to label myself as that. Human beings, we're too complex to be going around labeling ourselves like, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. I know I said that in the beginning. I was saying for those that are, extroverts. So that was not even really correct for me to say that, right? Because in some way, everybody has a little bit of both. Everybody has the introvert and the extrovert in them. Like we have all of it. Some more than others. Some will lean more on the introvert side. Some will lean more on the extrovert side, right? But we all have both. At least that's how I see it. We all have both of those things. So yeah, that wasn't, I would say that wasn't right for me to place that label, on someone. But anyway, I have a little bit of both, that introversion and extroversion. There are certain environments, depending on where I'm at and the type of energy, I could be one of the most jovial people. The vibe is good. I'm joking around with people. I'm messing around, like, depending on the environment, right? And the type of energy, I could be that way. And then other times after a while, usually it's like, again, it all depends, where you're at and, because we're all feeling each other's energy, right? If you're around people. So it depends on all those things. But usually I'd say after like an hour or so, I'm kind of like, okay, all right, I'm ready to be alone now. I'm ready to kind of just have my time or whatever. And it's not always realistic to do that. Okay. If you're a parent, if you're, again, a caretaker, if you have other people around you and all that, that's not always realistic. Sometimes you're just going to have to deal with it. Yes, you want to be alone, but that is just not an option. Right. So again, that's where the intentionality comes in. Finding ways to be intentional about doing that. So if it means sitting in your car for 5 minutes on your way to work, if that's what your being alone is, do that before you start the car and start driving. Give yourself 5 minutes in the car. Just sit in the car. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the morning when you're waking up and you're about to hit the road, and you could do your affirmations, gratitude, if you have certain rituals and certain practices that you want to do, go ahead and do them. Just giving thanks for another day, for being here, saying some affirmations that you have that you want to speak out. Or just even being still. You don't even have to do any of that if you don't want to. Just be still for a few minutes and just be in tune, get in tune with yourself before you get out into this world. Because as soon as you get out in the world and you're not in tune, that's when you go out there and then people will say things and they'll start pissing you off and that driver cuts in front of you and you start cussing them out in the car because you're not in tune with yourself. And I'm including myself in this, by the way. All of us have work to do on this. Because we're not in tune always. I'm getting better and better about it. Every day getting up, very first thing that I say is thank you, Source. Thank you, God, for another day. That's my very first thing. I'm grateful for another day. Soon as I get off the bed and my feet's on the ground, that's the first thing. I've kind of made it a habit where that's just what I say. And it sounds simple, but something like that can put you in a great frame of mind for the rest of your day. If there are certain, I don't know, quotes, things that uplift you, certain images, you know, you can put it on your phone, on your, screensaver. Yes, I know people love to put their families on the screensaver. There's nothing wrong with that if you like doing that. But sometimes you could do something like maybe a certain quote that gives you inspiration or something. Make that your screensaver. So every time you look at that phone, every time you turn that phone on, you see that. So if you're somebody who, let's say, procrastinates, right? And you have maybe a quote as your screensaver about that'll give you motivation, right? To not procrastinate or something. Put that as a screensaver. So every time you look at the phone, living in a society where we are constantly on our phones, right? So every time you pick it up, that's that reminder to you. It's a reminder like, hey, don't procrastinate. I mean, you don't want it to be like, to say don't procrastinate, right? But just something that'll give you that reminder like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then when you get that reminder, you start to think about, oh, these are some of the things that I said I was going to do. And then next thing you know, you're actually doing it because you got a reminder. You had something that activated your mind to get you into, not procrastinating. I mean, procrastinating is an example, but there are many other examples you can use, right? So these are some of the practical things, because again, we got to be practical. Things that we can actually use in our everyday lives. Use a screensaver, that'll help you with ideas and certain concepts, right? That you tend to forget about, right? Find a way that'll help you find a way to get back into remembering. So the screensaver, obviously there's the other things, like I said, the meditation, the journaling, things like that. Put things in your wallet. If you use your wallet a lot and there's something in there that you can put in there that can help you, remind you of certain things, right? If you're trying to manifest or bring about a certain amount of, I don't know, money or whatever the case is, find something that reminds you of that. Put it in your wallet. So every time you open your wallet, every time you look at it, you see that in there. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but so yeah, that's the video, is just identify what the difference is between being alone and being by yourself. So to sum it all up, what I would say is that find ways to be alone, as hard as it may be. Find ways, and any little time that you get is valuable. So I'm not telling you need an hour to be alone and all these things. No, even if it's 5 minutes of you just being alone, take those 5 minutes and be grateful for it. Don't take those 5 minutes with a sense of, oh, it's not enough. And, you get this feeling of inadequacy, right? Because yes, you want to have 30 minutes alone, but you have 5. So you're kind of mad about the fact that you have only 5 and not 30. Like, don't do that. Just be grateful for the fact that you even have 5 minutes to yourself. Just start with that. And if you can keep increasing it, get it to 10, 15, 20. Next thing you know, it could be 30 minutes. Let's say if it's 10 minutes, for example, split that 10 minutes in half. Do the first 5 minutes of being alone in your car, put the phone down, okay? Or set a timer with your phone. But after you set the timer with your phone, put the phone away and just be alone for 5 minutes before you leave the house. And then before you come back home, let's say if this is work, right? Sit in your car. When you get in the car and you're about to drive back home, do another 5 minutes. That's your 10 minutes right there. So there are creative ways that we can come up with that'll help us to create that inner peace, that inner sense of being all one with ourselves. And once again, being by yourself gives you an opportunity to be alone. So just because you are by yourself does not mean you're alone. So that is my message for today. Just remember always that on a healthy body rests a healthy mind. So let's make our health a priority always. If you're watching this and that is a desire of yours and you want to know how you can do that, look at the description. Get in touch with me and let's see how we can work together. I am a health coach. That is what I do. That is my mission, is to use health to help people to transform their lives. So take a look in the description if you're interested. And yeah, let's get together and let's see how I could be of service to you. So love you all. You all have a wonderful day. Okay. And I'll see you on the next video. All right. Goodbye.